All that a deaf-mute girl named Dot wants is to become invisible. While in the crowd, the girl feels like she doesn't exist. In the school cafeteria, Dot always sits alone at a table. She has a so-called sister, Olivia Dear, a cheerleader and the most popular girl in school. They don't get along. Dot prefers solitude and often hides in the school bathroom. Nina has to drive her stepsister home from school because Nina's parents took Dot in after she lost her own parents. Olivia, Nina's mother, hopes the girls will eventually become friends, although the daughter clearly shows no desire to interact with her unwanted sister. Nina has a best friend, Michelle Fell, who loves to talk about boys and similar things. Nina wants Michelle to stay for dinner with them tonight, but the mother said that the father would probably come home tired from work. At the pharmacy, Paul Dear was approached by Janice Feltzwater, Nina's vocational guidance coordinator. The woman was concerned about Dot's lack of socialization. Paul explained that the girl had recently lost her father, to whom she was very close. Dot's mother passed away of cancer when she was 7. It seems that Paul is not only a talented architect but also a good person for adopting Dot. After getting medicine for his wife, the man wished Janice all the best and left. At home, Nina asked her father to give up Dot. Ignoring this, Paul complimented the daughter's appearance. While her father went to the living room, Nina took the medicine out of the bag. It was a powerful painkiller. Nina steals the pills secretly from her parents. Because of the same medication, Olivia constantly feels drowsy. She is a decorator by profession, but now she has begun to withdraw from social life. As usual, Paul carried his wife to the bedroom and gave her more medicine. Olivia obediently took it and was no longer able to have dinner with the family. Paul plays the role of a good father to both girls. Nina doesn't want to see Dot in their home anymore, but Paul told his daughter that they need to do the right thing. Dot has no one else besides them. Nina was going to spend the night at Michelle's today. Paul wasn't too pleased with this. In biology class, the teacher paired Dot with a handsome guy named Connor Kennedy for a lab assignment. Many girls envy Dot because almost every one of them dreams of getting Connor's attention, but he doesn't seem too interested in that. Michelle hinted to Nina that it was about time she got a boyfriend. With her looks she could have any guy, but for some reason Nina isn't interested. The school canteen worker is one of the few people Dot can talk to. The woman has a deaf-mute daughter, so she understands sign language. Entering an empty music classroom, Dot began playing the piano. At that moment she thought of Beethoven, who despite losing his hearing, became a brilliant musician. Connor accidentally caught a glimpse of Dot playing. When the so-called sisters crossed paths in the school restroom, Nina smeared lipstick on Dot's face. Nina never misses an opportunity to mock the girl. At home in the evening, while Nina was washing the dishes, the father approached her and started complimenting her. Dot couldn't sleep. Losing the father, the only close person to her, broke her heart. Now silence is Dot's best friend. She will never forget the day her father was hit by a car. He was deaf, so he couldn't hear the truck's horn on the road. When Dot learned that Paul and Nina were involved in a relationship far beyond what is appropriate between family members, she didn't know what to think. The Dears appear to be a normal family from the outside, but due to the medication Olivia doesn't realize the true situation. When Nina asked her parents for permission to spend the night at Michelle's, the father firmly forbade her, but the mother stood up for the daughter and let her go. Paul was very angry, blaming his wife for not helping him raise their daughter. Dot was a silent witness to this. Believing that Dot couldn't hear anything, Olivia told the girl that her mother was a fallen woman. Dot looks a lot like her in appearance. Dot wanted to go to the movies. Olivia gladly agreed to take her, but Paul objected, telling his wife that she was not in a condition to drive. Paul volunteered to take Dot himself. The girl clearly felt uncomfortable in his company. In the movie theater besides them, were Nina and her friends. Michelle was determined to get Connor, but he paid her no attention. The young people talked about lonely Dot. Everyone knew she lost her hearing after her mother passed away when she was 7. Throughout the entire movie, Dot couldn't take her eyes off Nina, sensing how deeply unhappy the girl was. Perhaps she would have liked to be deaf too. Nina felt Dot's intense gaze. That evening, the girls talked about boys. Unlike Michelle, Nina was not very eager to keep this topic of conversation going. All night Dot tossed and turned, unable to sleep. A creaking sound startled her. It was Paul. When he entered Dot's bedroom, she pretended to be asleep. Being sure that the girl was deaf, Paul began to pour out his soul. The man was mentally ill and hated life. He believed that having another person in the house would change everything, but it hadn't. When Paul left, Dot opened her eyes. Meanwhile, Nina and Michelle continued chatting, discussing where they would run away if they had the chance. Nina wished she could be somewhere far away. The next day in the school canteen, the teenagers were secretly planning a small party at Brian's house while his parents were away. Connor looked interestedly at Dot, sitting alone at the table. Michelle couldn't help but notice her friend's bad mood. Nina made it clear that she didn't want to talk about it. Later, when Nina received a call from the father, her mood worsened even more. Paul wanted to control his daughter's every move. Returning home early, Nina witnessed playing the piano and talking to herself. Could she be pretending to be deaf? Nina pretended that she had just come home. The next day in the school canteen, Nina sat down at Dot's table and said she wanted to confess something to someone who wouldn't be able to hear her anyway. Nina whispered that she would soon take the life of her father, whom she hated with all her heart. Hearing such shocking details, Dot could barely hold back her emotions. Nina said she was glad to ease her own soul, though it continued to be a secret. Nina had already planned everything. Michelle would give her the father's gun. The mother wouldn't wake up anyway because of the pills. When Nina left, Dot tried to make sense of what she had heard. For some unclear reason, Connor felt drawn to Dot, who often stayed alone in the music classroom, playing. One day he gathered the courage and approached Dot, expressing admiration for her playing. The girl simply handed him the completed lab work and left. That evening, as the Dear family was having dinner, the doorbell rang. Nina thought it was Michelle, but she was surprised to see Connor at the door, who had come to see Dot. At first Paul thought Connor was Nina's boyfriend. But when Connor explained that he was working on a biology lab project with Dot, Paul immediately relaxed. The doorbell rang again. This time it was indeed Michelle. Dot noticed the girl handing Nina a small package. Could it be the gun? When Michelle learned that Connor was here, she began to flirt with him actively. Connor suggested to Dot that they go to the library to study. The girl was confused but eventually agreed, which clearly displeased Michelle. Nina was outraged that the father so easily allowed Dot to leave with a guy he was seeing for the first time. Nina had no such privileges. In reality, the young people didn't go to the library but to a cafe. Connor tried to explain to Dot that he needed a good grade in biology to get a basketball scholarship. When the waitress came over, Connor said that his companion was deaf but could read lips if spoken to slowly. He was drawn to this girl. Meanwhile, Michelle and Nina were doing their nails in her room. They were interrupted by Paul, who wanted to see his daughter right away. He didn't like that Michelle was staying so late in their house. Nina asked the friend to leave. Michelle reminded her that they were planning to party at Brian's house after midnight. When Nina said she couldn't go, Michelle took offense at her. Connor decided to confide in Dot, certain that she couldn't hear. Many people believe that Connor is popular with girls, but in reality he is very shy. Moreover, Connor has never had a girlfriend. At home, the first thing Dot did was check Nina's backpack, but inside there was no gun, only video discs. Dot overheard what was happening in Nina's room. Paul was there. Dot deliberately broke a statue in the hallway to make Paul stop. Nina went to clean up the shards, knowing that Dot had done it to help her. The girls cleaned up the shards together. Paul and Olivia already seemed to live in different worlds. Due to the pills, the woman was becoming increasingly detached from reality. At night Nina cried. When someone hugged her, she didn't expect it to be Dot. This time Nina didn't push her away. Nina still pretended to believe that Dot was deaf. The girl said that she would carry out her plan tonight, hinting that Dot would be considered an accomplice if she could hear. Later, Dot called Child Protective Services but couldn't bring herself to say anything. Soon the school basketball competition took place. Connor was one of the best players, while Nina led the cheerleading squad. Dot could see how depressed Nina really was. After the game, Connor approached Dot in the hallway. Unfortunately, his team lost today. The young people went to the school swimming pool. The guy poured out his heart to Dot again, saying that he was thinking about her more and more. Connor turned out to be a sensitive and vulnerable person, which contrasted with his appearance. Olivia told the husband that Paul seemed nice to her. He would be a good match for their daughter. These words angered Paul. Not suspecting that Dot could actually hear him, Connor continued to open up to her. Passion arose between them right by the pool. When Nina returned, the father gave her an expensive handbag. Nina thanked him, not revealing her true feelings. Looking at the clock, Dot hurried home, leaving Connor confused. Does Olivia suspect what is happening between Paul and Nina? Even if she does, she doesn't want to accept it. Nina is on the verge of harming the father but is trying with all her might to restrain herself. With a loud slam of the door, Dot returned, but Paul didn't care. Suddenly Nina told her father that she was pregnant. Of course Paul was not at all happy with this news. He asked his daughter what she planned to do about it. Nina replied that she had already found an anonymous clinic but needed $1,000 in cash for it. Naturally, Paul was willing to do anything to solve the problem. Dot overheard this conversation. That same night, Nina came to Dot's room and lay down beside her. The sisters were no longer enemies. In the canteen, Connor invited Dot to the school dance, but she refused. The cook, who knew sign language, conveyed to him that Dot preferred to be alone. Connor was very upset by the rejection. Seeing this, Michelle was furious. Why did Connor choose a deaf, unremarkable girl? Before the school dance, Nina brought Dot one of her dresses and shared her plan to run away tonight. The $1,000 would be enough for her to start a new life far from here. In reality, Nina had lied to her father about the pregnancy. She just didn't have any other choice. This time Nina put Dot's lipstick on nicely. But the girl didn't want to go to the dance and wiped off the lipstick. She didn't care about Connor's feelings. Nina called Dot a mystery. No one knows what's going on inside her. Paul found feminine hygiene products in Nina's room and realized that she had lied about the pregnancy. Later, he demanded an explanation from her. Their argument was briefly interrupted by music. It was Dot playing the piano downstairs. Paul couldn't understand why his daughter had done this to him. He was so scared, never thinking that Nina was capable of lying. Dot was crying as she continued to play, hearing Nina's screams. Dot couldn't leave things as it was, so she tore a string from the musical instrument and headed toward Nina's room. Olivia also heard the screams, but she didn't try to do anything. Dot sneaked up on Paul from behind and attacked him, yelling at him to get away from Nina. That's how Dot took Paul's life. At first Nina was in shock, crying. Now she no longer hides the fact that she knows Dot's secret. Olivia entered the room, not fully understanding what was happening due to the effects of her medication. There was a knock at the door. Michelle had come by to pick up Nina. The girls quickly tidied themselves up. As they left the house, Nina, who had calmed down, said that they needed to get rid of the evidence. Michelle and another girl, Fiona, were drunk. They were going to have a great time at the dance. Connor immediately asked Dot to dance, while Olivia sat next to her lifeless husband with a blank stare. Connor still hopes that Dot will give him a chance. Only with this girl does he feel like himself. Connor thought Dot was trembling because his presence made her nervous, but in reality there was another reason for her anxiety. Nina was also barely holding back her emotions. When Dot left, Connor followed her and called out to her. She stopped. Connor felt deep disappointment. He had entrusted Dot with all his most intimate secrets, only to find out that she could hear him all along, having lied about being deaf. Dot tried to explain herself, but Connor didn't want to listen to her. Nina approached Dot, saying that they had to leave right now. Not far into the woods, the girls buried the evidence deep. Dot was never deaf, and this was a secret she shared with her father. Nina asked the girl why she pretended to be. Dot replied that she wanted to be invisible to others. Now the girls have to stick together, or else they will both be alone. After making sure the evidence was buried deep enough, they headed home. The police arrested Olivia because everything looked like she'd taken Paul's life. Olivia thought so too, barely remembering anything. Nina did not give Dot away. In the final scene, we see the girls playing the piano four-handed.